The time is 8:45 p.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Here is the news edited by Dilini Gunawardena and read by Tilani Pires. The headlines. The President forms an expert committee to address public service salary disparities. The authorities are instructed to regularize educational activities of the children in the areas that are affected by inclement weather. The USA donates a stock of medicine worth $225,000 to the island. Sri Lanka makes significant progress in the Asian NGO sector. High-risk dengue zones increase in the island after heavy rainfall. And on international news, Israeli forces announced the end of military operations in central Gaza. And on sports news, the Sri Lankan javelin champions leave to South Korea. The President Ranil Wickremesinghe has appointed a specialist committee to address salary anomalies in the government service. This committee is chaired by former Presidential Secretary Mr. Udaya Senviratne. Presidential Additional Secretary Vernon Pereira serves as the Secretary of the said committee. With careful consideration of the prevailing salary anomalies among various employee groups within the public service, measures will be taken in the 2025 budget to review and potentially revise salaries, wages and other provisions across all sectors. This task has been delegated to the expert committee. Additionally, the President has instructed that the committee submit its recommendations report within 3 months. The Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena said that the education authorities have been instructed to regularize the educational activities of children in the areas that are affected by recent bad weather conditions. The Prime Minister mentioned this while distributing school equipment and dry food items to children affected by the disaster. The distribution of school equipment and dry food items to the affected children was carried out in Avisavela under the patronage of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister stressed that it is the responsibility of the adults to ensure that nothing obstructs the education of children and that school cleaning and renovation work has already started with the participation of local administration and line institutions. He also pointed out that these kind of activities are necessary to heal the minds of the children whose books were damaged by the floods. The first stock of donation of medicine for cancer treatment in the government hospitals worth at over $225,000 was handed over to the Ministry of Health today. The Director of Welfare of the Asian region of LDS Latter-day Saints Charities of the USA, Mr. Mickey Louis, officially delivered the stock of drugs to Minister Dr. Ramesh Pathirana. This is the first stock of medicine received in Sri Lanka in accordance with the Memorandum of Understanding between the Ministry of Health and LDS Latter-day Saints Charities USA in February of this year. According to the MOU, 13 types of essential cancer drugs will be received in Sri Lanka. Its value is over $1 million. It will be enough for 1 year of cancer treatment in this country. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
A comprehensive banking services package with a branded checkbook as well as debit and credit card exclusively for you.
In the Asian social service sector, non-governmental organizations in the island have made significant strides by the year 2024, overcoming challenges that were present in 2022. For the year 2024, Cambodia, India, Indonesia, Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Thailand and Vietnam have been categorized as doing okay in the Doing Good Index. Doing Good Index examines the enabling environment for philanthropy and private social investment across 15 Asian economies, composed of 4-area tax and fiscal policy, regulatory regime, socio-cultural ecosystem, and a government procurement. The index reveals how Asian economies are catalyzing philanthropic giving. Mr. Sanjeeva Vimala Gunaratne, the Director General of the National Secretariat for Non-Governmental Organizations, has indicated that under the guidance of the Minister of Public Security, Mr. Tiran Alas, substantial reforms have been implemented. These changes have positively impacted the NGO sector's performance indicators. The Director General also noted that the reforms necessary to advance to the Doing Well category, which includes nations like Singapore, Chinese Taipei, by the year 2026 have already been enacted. This index is updated biennially. The National Dengue Control Unit (NDCU) says that the number of high-risk dengue zones have increased due to the prevailing rainy weather conditions in the country. Furthermore, the NDCU says that due to the existing weather conditions, there is a rapid increase in dengue cases reported, with 971 cases recorded in the first 11 days of this month. Meanwhile, a total of 25,891 cases have been reported so far this year. According to the NDCU, 57 dengue deaths were reported across the country during this period. Consequently, high-risk dengue zones in the island have also increased up to 14. The highest number of dengue cases has been reported from Colombo district with 5,624 cases, followed by the Jaffna district with 3,939 dengue cases. Meanwhile, a total of 2,487 dengue cases have been reported from the Gampha district, 1,986 cases from the Kandy district, 1,441 from the Ratnapura district and 1,372 from the Kalutara district. NDCU requests the public to destroy the mosquito breeding places in the surroundings in order to prevent the disease. That ends the local news to now.
Elevate your life with People's Bank Excelsior. A comprehensive banking services package with a branded checkbook as well as debit and credit card exclusively for you.
And now we get on to the main news story. 20 new recruited officers to the Sri Lanka Foreign Service were welcomed to the Ministry of Foreign Secretary Aruna Vijayawardena today. The Foreign Secretary highlighted the important role of the Sri Lanka Foreign Service and the special responsibility of all officers as public servants. She referred to the skills required in the modern world of diplomacy, including the priority given to economic diplomacy. These new officers have been recruited to the Sri Lanka Foreign Service through an open competitive examination and interview process and appointed by the Public Service Commission. That was the main news story.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya. The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
And on to Watchlight tonight, the Secretary to the Minister of Health, Dr. Palitha Mahipala, warns that Sri Lanka is facing a health crisis of non-communicable diseases which account for 89% of deaths. The harder hit are those aged 50 to 60, with 4 out of 10 falling victim to non-communicable diseases. Each year, 60,000 Sri Lankans suffered strokes, resulting in 4,000 deaths and leaving thousands with serious health issues. That came to you in Watchlight. Coming up, World News. World News headlines first. The Israeli forces announced the end of military operations in central Gaza. The Malawi vice president's plane is found with no survivors. Apple brings ChatGPT to iPhones in AI overhaul. The Israeli forces have announced the end of their military operation in the central Gaza Strip about 6 days after its launch. The Israeli army announced last Wednesday that the 98th Divisional had begun an operation east of Berdriji refugee camp and east of the central governorate of Gaza. During the operation, Israeli forces rescued 4 captives on Saturday in the Nuseirat refugee camp, in the process killing more than 270 Palestinians and wounding 700 others. Hamas said 3 other captives were also killed in the operation. The President Lazarus Chakwera has said the wreck of a plane carrying Malawi's vice president has been found with no survivors. Saulos Chelema and 9 others were flying within the country yesterday morning when their military aircraft disappeared from airport radars. In a news briefing day, President Chakwera said the Malawi Defense Force commander informed him that the search and the rescue operation has been completed and the plane was found, adding that he was deeply saddened and sorry to inform Malawians of the terrible tragedy. Apple is to boost its Siri voice assistant and operating systems with OpenAI's ChatGPT as it seeks to catch up in the AI race. The iPhone maker announced the Siri makeover along with a number of other new features at its annual developers show on Monday. It is part of a new personalized AI system called Apple Intelligence that aims to offer users a way to navigate Apple devices more easily. Updates to its iPhone and Mac operating systems will allow access to ChatGPT through a partnership with developer OpenAI. ChatGPT can also be used to boost other tools including text and content generation. The test version will become available in the autumn. Back to the world news headlines. The Israeli forces announced the end of military operations in central Gaza. The Malawi vice president's plane is found with no survivors. Apple brings ChatGPT to iPhones in AI overhaul. That ends world news.
Development news.
At a discussion held with President Ranil Wickremesinghe yesterday, Indian Senior Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar highlighted plans for an industrial zone in Trincomalee to be established by the Indian government, which will attract numerous Indian investors and potential investors from other countries. He further addressed the swift resumption of development projects initiated in Sri Lanka with Indian investments which had been halted midway, assuring that he would visit Sri Lanka soon to expedite the commencement of development projects funded by the Indian investments. That was development news. Moving on with sports news. 4 Sri Lankan javelin champions are set to leave the island tonight for the Asian Throwing Championships to be held in Mokpo, South Korea on June 14th and 15th. Javelin throwers Nadisha Dilhani, Diana Harshani, Sumedha Ranasinghe and Rumesh Taranga are included in this team. Mr. Tony Prasanna will be the coach of this team and Mr. Samira Pereira will be the manager. That came to you in sports news.
Go ekak tiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු ගීන හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
The Indo-Lanka Chamber of Commerce and Industry hosted an interactive session with the High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, Santosh Jha, at the Taj Samudra, Colombo. The event brought together business leaders and industry experts for a night of engaging discussions and networking. That was Business News.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekak tiyana youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු ගීන හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
And on economic news, the Constitutional Council has postponed the granting approval for the President's recommendation to extend the tenure of Attorney General Sanjay Rajaratnam by 6 months. The decision was made during a council meeting held yesterday, where it was agreed to defer the discussion for further deliberation. Rajaratnam's current term is set to expire at the end of this month, and the President had proposed an extension for an additional 6 months. That came to you in economic news.
Weather report.
Showers will occur at times in the western, Sabaragama and northwestern provinces and in the Kandy, Nuwara, Galle and Mathura districts. Fairly heavy showers, about 75 millimeters, are likely at some places in the western and Sabaragama provinces. Showers or thunder showers may occur at a few places in the Uva province in the evening or night. Strong winds of about 40 to 50 kilometers per hour can be expected at times over the western slopes of the central hills, northern, north central and northwestern provinces and in the Trincomalee, Hambantota and Monaragala districts. That was the weather report. And now to in this news broadcast, the main points once again. The President forms an expert committee to address public service salary disparities. The authorities are instructed to regularize educational activities of the children in the areas that are affected by the inclement weather. The USA donates a stock of medicine worth $225,000 to the island. Sri Lanka makes significant progress in the Asian NGO sector. High-risk dengue zones increase in the island after heavy rainfall. fall. And on international news, Israeli forces announce the end of military operations in central Gaza. And on sports news, the Sri Lankan javelin champions leave to South Korea. That ends this news broadcast. And now it's, as always, on a Tuesday night, back to Chandima Virakon.